शन्नो मित्रः शं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्भक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु भक्तारम् ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः We are in the middle of an involved discussion about jnanam. The word jnanam. Where is the word jnanam? Of course, in the Brahma Lakshana Vakya. Satyam, jnanam, anantam. So this jnana shabda, the main purpose of this jnana shabda is nivaranartham, is to remove what brahmanaha, from Brahman, fifth case here, brahmanaha jadyam. Jadyam means inertness, so that one doesn't come to the conclusion. Satyam, all right, Brahman is, no problem. Satyam means existent. So many things are existent. No problem. Brahman is also existent. But Brahman is like a rock. And you can perhaps do Abhisheka and chant the Taittiriya Upanishad. Okay. This is what it is used in the temples. And this is how people come to know about this, prospective jignasus and all come to know, because this is all, these mantras are used for Abhisheka. So that is one way in which one gets that wrong understanding. Already the understanding is wrong about oneself, and then with regard to Brahman also, which is really the truth of oneself, there is lots of mistakes made. And so here, so the word jnanam is as much revealing the sentiency of Brahman as much as it is warding off the possibility, even the whiff of a possibility, that Brahman is insentient. That that is its primary purpose. Then the second, so that is the first purpose of it. Then the second meaning, the second purpose or the function of the word jnana is to eliminate, is to use it in such a way as an abstract noun, and we have talked about it some, and we'll talk about it some more as well. And so as an abstract noun, and it is primarily to eliminate any kind of a kartritvam. Kartritvam means doership, where this jnanam is concerned. So, Brahman is not the doer of what? Of jnanam, meaning not the knower. Not the knower, not the known, not the means of knowledge. This we have seen. And so therefore, this is why the word jnanam is here, and it is to negate all the karakas, make this Brahman free of what is called karaka vyapara. Vyapara, use, transaction. Karaka means factors in action. In grammar school, elementary school or middle school, you would have studied cases when studying English language. Nominative case and what else, accusative case, instrumental case. And after studying all of them, the last case, basket case. Basket case means all confused about all of this, you know. So this is, this is what makes one into an agent of action. So these are the cases. These are the cases that make one into an agent, and then the agent comes first, and then relying on that agent or hooked on that agent or leaning on that agent are all other things. What are the other things? The object. So the agent is acting upon something, and so that becomes the object. And then that the agent is using some tools or means, and that becomes the instrument. And then the agent is not is not stupid, doing the performing the action for some purpose, going to get a glass of water to ward off the thirst, eating something because one is hungry. So that is the purpose of action. And then what? And then where is the source of action coming from? And where is this, how is this action, where is it originating from? Well, I was running away from some thieves who, in the other village. So from that village, I came running to this village, and from this village, I'm going to go somewhere else. So that becomes the origin of action. And then after that, then there is, the agent is not acting single-handedly. The agent comes from a web of relationships: mother, father, sister, brother, mine, yours, his, hers, all these things, the possessive case. And then finally, the location of action. Where is the action happening? In the house, in the car, in this, in that, so all this, on top of a tree. So like this, so this is how the everyday life is conducted. Without this, there is not any kind of a nothing to talk about. What are you going to talk about, and to whom, really? And so therefore, this is all that one is used to, this being a very, very strong orientation. This is what has to be properly negated, and in fact repeatedly negated, because by the time the next weekend means that's when we are having the classes, by the time the next weekend rolls over, all that has been said and done is already gone somewhere, because for that whole week, how have we lived? We have lived with all these karakas. The karakas have become our greatest friends. And so we have lived in a different reality, and then to come and study this requires a different orientation, and therefore there is a lot of emphasis on bringing us back repeatedly to this. So all the karakas have to be negated. Why? Because all the karakanam satyam, or what is the truth? What is the truth of all the karakas? That is what is called jnanam. What is the content of the agent, content of the means of action, content of the purpose of action, origin of action, location of action, etc., etc.? What is that content? That is what is jnanam, dhatu artha. And that is why it is used along with Satya and Ananta, the word Satyam and Anantam, so that that's what was talked about earlier. Satyabhyam saha Brahma Visheshanatvat Jnana Shabdaha Atra Avabodhaha iti Jnaptihi iti, he had said. And we talked about that at length last time. And so, just to sum up, that is why the abstract noun, the bhava sadhana, from the sutra, lyut cha bhave. that this, we have talked a little bit about this pratyaya called lyut, which becomes anam, like jna plus anam. And so this anam can be used in the sense, in the abstract sense, says Panini. Like for example, balasya hasanam. It's in the neuter sense, and it is in the it is used in the abstract sense. The laughter, the laughter. You see, it's abstract already. The laughter of the boy. Balasya hasanam. And so here, jnanam, in the same way, it is used in an abstract, sense. And then so this is just consciousness, avabodha. He had pointed it out. Now he says that, he says one more line. Nahi satyata anantata cha jnanakartritve sati upapadyate. So, for those who are still hoping that somehow Brahman will become an agent just to oblige me, and Brahman will become an agent, if not today, tomorrow, for people who are hoping against hope, because it is very difficult to comprehend Brahman or anything for that matter, that which does not do anything, that which is not an actor, because we know things that belong to two categories. And perhaps if you are a little more thoughtful, three categories. What's the first category? Is actor, agent. And what's the second category? Acted upon. And the object. And then, if you think a little more, if someone is a little more reflexive, self reflexive, introspective, etc., then the third category comes into the picture. What is the third category? That it is the means of, it's a means of action, it's a means of knowing, or whatever it is. So, that third one, jnata, jnanam, jneyam. So, jnata, jneyam, everybody knows, subject, object, but then that which connects the subject and object, that one is not very easy to objectify. And so some people understand this and some people may not immediately understand this. So here, this is what we know, and we want Brahman also to be like that, because everything we know is just like that. Why should Brahman be any different? And if it is, because there is a fear. If it is different than the basic jnata, jnanam, jneyam, if it's different from this basic threefold division that everything seems to enjoy or rather suffer from in the universe, then how can I understand Brahman? There's a little bit of a freak out here, a small panic, because how can I understand it if it is not if it is not the knower? Okay, maybe then it is the knower, it's not the known, and it's not a means of knowledge. It's not how you know things. How maybe it is not even there. No, it is there. It is you. How to understand it? So therefore, he says, to ward off jnana kartritvam. Jnana kartritvam means the attributing agency to Brahman. That has to be warded off, he says. And he says, nahi, not indeed, satyata anantata cha jnana kartritve sati upapadyate. If Brahman was indeed the doer, if Brahman was the agent of knowledge, let's say Brahman was Jnana Karta. Okay, then what? Then, if that was the case, then the word Satyam and Jnanam, Satyam and Anantam should go home. Why? Because they have no use here. If Brahman is the knower, and then you can say, oh, I mean Brahman is the knower, all knowing. Brahman, Bhagavan, all knowing. Why not take it like knows each and everything, the knower of each and everything? Why not take it this way? Because if you take it this way, then immediately you're digging a grave for this whole argument. You're digging a grave for your own argument. Why? Because you're not looking at the fact that the word jnanam is not hanging, from some, from some tree or something like that. Sometimes, you're in America, what people do, these teenagers, I suppose when they buy new shoes, the old shoes, they just tie to one another and they put it, they throw it on one of those, electric lines or on the tree. And there it is, just there, poor shoe. One shoe sometimes goes away, another shoe is there, and then it is just it is there hanging all by itself. That is not the fate of the word jnanam. It is not there hanging by, rejected and hanging, dejected, rejected, upset and hanging by itself. No, it is there along with the, it is a sandwich. It is part of a sandwich. It is jnanam is the filling, yummy, and then what? On one side is satyam, on the other side flanked by satyam and anantam. So if that is the case, then if Brahman is the knower, then nahi, not indeed, satyata, existence, anantata. What kind of existence? Limitlessness. Upapadyate. It would not be tenable. Calling Brahman the only source of existence, the source of all existence, and limitless, time wise, space wise, object wise, would indeed not be tenable. Why would it not be tenable? Because if indeed the Brahman were to be Jnana Karta, were to be the actor, the agent of knowledge, the knower. Why? Because we had already pointed out, Adi Shankara, seems to be saying that this Visheshanas, Satya and Satya Anantabhyam Saha Vartate. This Jnanam is there along with Satyam and Anantam. And then if Jnanam Brahma is taken as Janati, then what happens? Like even, oh, Sarvam Janati, even if you take Sarvajnaha, still Janati is there. Janati means knows. So what does that happen? So Jnana Kartritve Sati, if Brahman is seen or construed as the knower because of the interpretation of the Jnana Shabda, then Vikaravat Brahma. Vikaravat means subject to modifications. Now knower, now buddhu. Buddhu means opposite of buddhi. Okay, yeah. Buddhu means murkha, foolish. Now I know. Oh, no, no, no. I put my foot in my mouth. I did not know this. I got into a scrape. This is the thing. So now buddhu, now full of buddhi. This is the situation. So then Brahma becomes vikaravat. Vikaravat means full of modifications. So the status of knower comes and goes, especially with regard to the object in question. It's not the knower of nothing in particular, it is the knower of. We don't know the knower of nothing in particular, we know the knower of things in particular. So previously, the person did not know how to make a pot. And then practiced, took some lessons. Where? On YouTube, of course. That's where everybody learns everything, including Vedanta. So on YouTube, went and took some pottery lessons, and then now has pot knowledge, pot making knowledge. Now has become the knower of Ghata, Ghatagnaha. Ghatam janati iti. Ghatagnaha, it has become. So therefore what? That the person definitely has a change. Before was feeling I'm no good, I can't do anything right, and then suddenly found his or her niche in the pottery world. And so therefore what? Jnana kartritve sati. If you take Brahman to be the knower, for Brahman then satyata na upapadyate. It cannot be satyam. Why? What is satyam? Let's go back and revise what is satyam. Navyabhicharati iti satyam, it was told. That which never undergoes a change is satyam. So already what has happened? Brahman was not the potter, now has become the potter. Already the change is there. So therefore what? So therefore, this satyam is that which doesn't undergo any change, and therefore any change is mithya, and satyam is that which is upon which all mithya leans. And so therefore, if it has to be Satyam Brahma, it cannot be an agent of knowledge. That is the first point. Then, Jnana Kartritve Sati, we can repeat the same sentence again. Anantata cha na upapadyate. Anantata, limitlessness. So why there won't be any limitlessness? Because there is something to be known. Jnaya is there. So jnana is there, all right. And then jnaya is there. Jnaya means to that which is to be known. The object is there. So if I am the subject, knower, then what do you know? Because already we discussed this. Jna is sakarmaka dhatu. It is a transitive verb. So if you say no, then what do you know? What do you know? Oh, I know how to make a pot. Okay, that's the object. So, if Brahman is the knower, then that which is known is excluded. And how can there be limitlessness? Limitlessness means that which includes and even transcends knower, known, means of knowledge, or any kind of divisions. And so here the knower is there, and then it leaves out the known. And Jnatra Brahma Chet, then is that Brahman, it is not Jnana, it is not Gneya. And so then what? Anantata is ruined. And therefore it won't work here. Ayyo, what should we do now? Quickly go to the next sentence. Okay, that's the only thing to do in such circumstances. And hope that whatever the next sentence is there, it will tell us how to proceed. ज्ञानकर्तृत्वेन हि विक्रियमाणं कथं सत्यं भवेत् अनन्तञ्च यद्धि न कुतश्चित् विभज्यते तद् अनन्तम् ज्ञानकर्तृत्वे च ज्ञेयज्ञानाभ्यां प्रविभक्तम् इति अनन्तता न स्यात्. Beautiful, very, very nice. I mean, each sentence is so packed. You can just go on and on and on. So, jnana kartritvena, due to the attribution of the status of for Brahman being the agent of knowledge. Look at how we can get away in Sanskrit. Jnana kartritvena, one word, okay? And what was the translation? Due to Brahman being attributed with the status of being a knower. So, 12 words. 12 words to explain just this one word in, Sanskrit. 11 extra words we have used. So, due to this attribution of the status of being an agent of knowledge for Brahman, then what happens? Vikriyamanam katham satyam bhavet. As a result of that, Brahman undergoes vikriya, changes. Changes means now knower, now buddhu, and now knower, now duffer. And so like this you can have so many different statuses. Now little bit I know, now I know a lot, now no, I don't know anything. So like this you can have. And so katham satyam bhavet, so the one that keeps changing back and forth. Oh, just like even the person studying Vedanta, first after attending the first class, oh, I know. And then afterwards, oh, I thought I knew, I didn't know, now I know. And then 6 months later, now I think I really know. So this is exactly how it is. So katham satyam bhavet, these are all, what are they called? Rhetorical question. Akshepārthe kim, not prashnarthe. You don't try to count the ways how you can know. No, that just means that you cannot know this. It cannot be satyam. Katham satyam bhavet. How is it? How is it satyam? No. How is it satyam means, it cannot be satyam. Anantancha, it cannot be anantam either. And then he feels, I hope he is right, I hope he is correct, that we have understood Satyam adequately. And so, because we had already done 2, 3 paragraphs, and then we had gone back and forth with, sparred a little bit, duelled with a Purva Pakshi and sharpened our knowledge. So he thinks that he can rest, he can let this Satyam rest for now, and then go tackle this discussion of Anantam. We hope he is right. So then he gives a definition of Anantam, which is fantastic here. Really, I haven't seen anything like this. So he says, Yatra. Oh, where did it go? Oh, it's in another file. It just disappeared. Here we are. Okay. Yadhi na kutaschit vibhajyate tat anantam. Kutaschit means by any means. Na vibhajyate, na pravibhajyate. It is not divided by anything. That which is, in other words, indivisible is called, is the definition of Anantam. So Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma is Satyam Jnanam Anantam is what? Brahma Lakshana. And then we have, what do we have here? We have within that we have a mini Lakshana of Anantam. Anantya Lakshana. So, very nice discussion here. So, he explains this, so if there is jnana kartrutvam, then that Brahman cannot be Satyam, we saw, and then because it is keeps on, shifting and changing, and then it cannot be, because it undergoes a change, and Satyam does not undergo a change, and then so what? Therefore, how can it be Satyam? That we saw. Then he goes on to Anantam, Jnanam Brahma. Then it is what? Anantam. Jnanam is Anantam. Why is Jnanam Anantam? Because it is, they are not Visheshanas, we already saw, they are Lakshanas. And so therefore, when you say Jnanam Brahma, then for it to be limitless, you have to understand that the word Jnanam cannot either mean just the knower or the known or anything in between. It cannot. It absolutely cannot. If the word jnanam is knower, then what? It is not the object of knowledge. If it is not the object of knowledge, then it's only the knower. Suppose we say it is the known, then it is not the knower. Therefore, it cannot be anantam. Cannot be anantam. Why? And the reason is given. Yadhi kutaschit pravibhajyate tadanantam. Anantam means by any factor. And what are the factors we know? Kaleva, desheva. That is what? Either by time or by space. Those are some of the factors. Pravibhajyate. Pravibhajyate means is divided. So that alone is anantam. Certain things, are divided by time. And at such and such a time, this was there. The person was looking a certain way. And especially, you find this among, what is that? Celebrities. Celebrities. And so the celebrities, what happens, some they are used to, they just want to keep changing how they look because they want to be trending on these things called Twitter and all that. Somebody has to keep on talking about them. Otherwise, they will not be they will not be celebrated. They will not no longer be called celebrities because they have to be remain pertinent, and remaining pertinent means remaining current. How to remain current? Do something. You do kind of an extreme makeover, and then people will write about it, people will talk about it, and then whatever the photo will go viral on all the social media, and then people will keep on talking about it. And then, of course, public memory is very short, and then afterwards it dies down, and then you can start all over again. So sometimes, you can, they will wear outrageous clothes just for one event, some award ceremony, and they will just wear these outrageous gowns and clothes and all kinds of things, and then will be the talk of the town. And then, so this is so, and then people will, and then later on they will, they will come back to whatever they were wearing, and then people will still talk about it. Oh, that particular style of that time, this celebrity was very well known to because they initiated this particular style. And so, kalena pravibhajyate, vibhajyate. And then certain things, what deshena pravibhajyate. In one country it is like this, in another place it is like that, certain rules, certain ways of doing things, etc. So then, so that this is what it is. And but then, the change does take place, and the change need not be any kind of a macro change, it could be a small change. And so they have now, I heard, I haven't tried it out, but they have a feature on what is that, Google Earth. On Google Earth, supposedly they have a feature, and what is that, you can just it can show you a time lapse video, or of how your neighborhood looked 50 years ago, and all the changes, that has taken place in the last 50 years. So supposedly you can, so if you're living on a house in a particular street, you can look at what it looked like 50 years ago. My advice is don't, because you'll get depressed, because all the trees would have been cut, everything, so many things would have happened. But anyhow, that is what is that, kala pravibhajanam, and so like this. So there is, but then the people who've been living in the neighborhood, you don't even know, even if someone has been living in the neighborhood for 40 years of those 50 years, they don't even notice it, because it's all small small micro changes. So like that, there will be certain paricheda, kala paricheda, and then vastu paricheda. One flower is different from another flower. So if any of these become the dividing factor for Brahman, then what? Kutaschit pravibhajyate. So therefore Brahman will not be anantam. So if it is jnana karta, it is not karana, it is not karma, it is not any of the other karakas. It is not the object, subject, instrument, etc., etc. And so therefore, therefore, even if even if the philosophers, some philosophers and theologists want to take Brahman as God, and say that this Brahman is very powerful, and then in order to be very powerful, separate from everything else. That is not Vedanta. That is not Vedanta at all. And so therefore, Adi Shankara in that one sentence reminds us what Anantam means. Kutaschit na vibhajyate tadhi Anantam. And then, that which is anything that is not limited by any other factor is Anantam. And then it means what? Then, if then you cannot have, it negates completely any kind of agency for Brahman, even the sense of knowing. Because if, as we have seen before, if Brahman is the knower, it's not the known. And what is the known? Jagat, of course. So then the whole Jagat is excluded in this scenario. This is what is duality. This is what is the Dvaita Mata. The dualists talk about this all the time. This is what is the duality. So if you take it as karta, then even if you take it as Bhagavan, and Bhagavan is the karta of the Jagat, so the Jagat is completely different from Bhagavan. And so therefore what? Anantata nasyat brahmanaha. He concludes, if this is the case, then you cannot say Brahman is limitless. Why? Because Brahman will become just like another person, maybe a grandfather, someone respectable, elderly, etc. So, some kind of a grandfather. And then what? So then, even if it's then what? Because it's a grandfather. Why? Is separate from everything else, not inert. So therefore, like any other individual, one more individual. And then what? And that person has karaka apeksha, has to be, is the agent, is the object, and wants to know this, know that, etc. And then, in order to know, then that person called Brahman, granddaddy Brahman, grandpa Brahman, will need a pair of eyes, which of course will not work very well because grandpa, and then will need glasses, and then a hearing aid, and then of course then one more karana is we forget to reckon is antah karana, the the mind, etc. So there also there will be dementia and confusion, etc. Even if there is no dementia, there will be confusion, and then grandpa Brahman will need to go to a guru. You see, all these whole kinds of problems come in the come in the situation. And so therefore this so Brahman cannot undergo any change. It cannot be, in other words, savishesha. Visheshanaihi saha visheshaihi or visheshanaihi saha vartate. It cannot be savishesha. And if it is not savishesha, what is it? Nirvishesha. This is what we have to say. It is nirvishesha. It has nothing to that qualifies it in terms of time, in terms of object, in terms of place, and not only that, in terms of even the subtle differences of knower, known, etc. All these karakas, etc. Nirvishesham Brahma means it is not an attribute of anything. It does not not only it doesn't become the attribute of anything. It is not what is that? Nothing is an attribute for it. So therefore what? It becomes the I. There is no other Brahman other than Atma. It becomes the self. And Nirvishesha means it is you. And so therefore moksha is a possibility. And then so therefore what? So therefore what? So if moksha is then is a possibility, we have this, we have the possibility of understanding Brahman as Anantam. And if Brahman is Anantam and there is everything is Brahman, there is nothing other than Brahman, that means you are Satyam Jnanam Anantam. That possibility is where we have to come from. We have to come to this issue from understanding Brahma Lakshana, because if Brahman is separate from everything, understanding that Lakshana is not going to help me in any way. How is it going to help? It's not going to help at all. Understanding Brahman, what will I get? Nothing. But because it is nirvishesha, because it transcends, here we can use the word, it transcends the known knowledge, triputi, this triad. Therefore, it is nirvishesha. And because it is nirvishesha, it is at once I. But how do you say I am nirvishesha? Because that is what it is. That which is the indweller of this body, mind, sense complex, obtaining as consciousness. And that consciousness is all pervasive, limitless. That's why it cannot be a knower. It cannot be an object, the known. It cannot be a means of knowledge. And so therefore what? So therefore, this is what one has to, this is what is Satyam Jnanam Anantam. And if it is Nirvishesha, furthermore, it can join anything without really becoming anything. Without becoming without undergoing any transformation, it can join anything. And so therefore, the Nirvishesha means it will still remain nirvishesha. It's the satyam of everything, untouched by everything. And that is what one has to, one has to understand. And so this is the freedom. This is what moksha is. While living in a body that is, as good as gone, and then while living in a mind about which, as I have said many times, the only thing you can say is never mind. While living in, with senses that drive one senseless, one can still be free. One is still free. Why? Nirvishesha. Because all this is there, it is not dismissed. The creation is not dismissed, neither is the body dismissed. Mind is not dismissed, it is transcended. You have, a vantage, a vista, a vantage place. A place where you reside is the vantage point where you can see yourself running around in circles in order to get this or that while being totally free from that running. And where you see yourself with being chased by some unsavory elements while you're totally free. Unsavory elements means karma. Three fellows, Prarabdha, Agami, and Sanchita. These are the ones that are following you, and one has a club, one has a mace, one has some, one has bare hands, and then they're all running after you, and you are running in circles. But then you can laugh because here you are, free of that. This is the knowledge that gives you that freedom. Otherwise, if Brahman becomes the knower or the known, it is not possible. That's why the word Ananta, which we still haven't gotten into, but this is like an appetizer for the discussion of Ananta. Very, very beautiful. And this is what it has to teach us, is that if Brahman is Nirvishesha, that means it can as though join anything, and then it is free of that very thing. It is not, nothing is separate from it. It meaning Brahman. Everything is Brahma Swarupa alone. Who is the Jnata? Brahman. Who is the Jnaya, object of knowledge? Brahman. Who is the means of knowledge? Brahman. Oh, but just now you said that Brahman cannot be Jnanakarta. Will you stop contradicting yourself? I said yes. I did say that Brahman is not just the knower, not just the knower, not just the means of knowledge, but it is a situation where the knower and is non-separate from Brahman, known non-separate from Brahman, means of knowledge non-separate from Brahman, actor non-separate from Brahman, object non-separate from Brahman, means of action non-separate from Brahman. Any kind of triad you can take. Everything is, nothing is separate from Brahman. Brahman is not any one thing. This is what is Ananta, Anantya Siddhi. This is what is this is what is Ananta, free of the Karakas, etc. And this is what is talked about in the Bhagavad Gita also in the 4th chapter. Tasya kartaram api mam vidhi akartaram avyayam. So if somebody asks Bhagavan, you made this Jagat, you have caused this war in Ukraine. What did the people do in Ukraine to deserve this? You did this. Why? And why did you do this? Well, tasya kartaram api mam vidhi. Yes, you can say I did this. Why did you do this? I didn't do it at all. What do you mean you didn't do it at all? It's not so easy. It's like, what is that? Taking the Fifth Amendment. You can't just go away from this discussion. I demand to know, why did you do this, and now why are you shaking off all responsibility? Why are you just washing your hands off of this now? It's just like, when you have a fire, and this was Pujya Swamiji's favorite example. So he would say, if you put your finger in the fire, what will happen? Ow, it will burn. Definitely it will burn. And then you ask the fire, did you burn me? And if the fire can talk, what will it say? Yes, I did burn you. And then if you say, why did you burn me? The fire will say, I did not burn you. You were foolish enough to put your hand there, and that's why you got burnt. Meaning, it's a law. Anything that comes close to me, I will burn. It's my nature to burn. And so, similarly, here, there are certain laws. And those laws, even Bhagavan cannot transcend, because Bhagavan is not the dispenser of the laws. Not just the dispenser of the laws. Bhagavan, is manifest as the laws. So Bhagavan cannot go against Bhagavan. And so this is what the answer will come. Tasya kartaram apimam vidhi akartaram avyayam. So yes, all this is there is a doer and as though doer. And that as though doer, non-separate from Brahman. As though done in, non-separate from Brahman. And this is this is exactly how it is. And so sometimes it is your turn to get chased, and you try to outrun these fellows. And then what? Suddenly, let's say you have some magic potion, some punya kicks in, and you grow bigger than all of them, and then you start chasing them. And then the magic potion wears off. Astrologically, some Rahu Ketu shift. Just now they have shifted, and so Rahu Ketu shift, and Shani is going to shift exactly in 1 week. And then and then all these things, and then after that, what? You have to one has to cover under a cave, and and then just giving a new meaning to nihitam guhayam. Okay, so then you have to take shelter under a cave until all the calamitous situations pass. This is the whole story. So you cannot say Brahman is the Karta. Even if you take Brahman as Bhagavan, you cannot make Bhagavan into a Karta. And so therefore that is why this Anantya Hani should not take place. This Anantata must be very, very properly understood. See, Jnanam is not difficult to understand because it is you. It is definitely you, because it is that which is that awareness. And then if you go with awareness, and even if somebody doesn't understand awareness, you can explain it is sakshita, as the witness. So the witnessing, and then after that you can say, okay, let's drop the object of the what is witnessed. So supposing there is nothing to witness, so what will there be? Okay, awareness. That is not very hard to understand. Satyam is also not too difficult to understand, because is that awareness which is, and so that which never undergoes any change, non-negatable, and does not undergo any change. This is what is Satyam. That also it can be explained. But this Anantam is very, at least in the beginning, because of the subtle orientation of time, space, object, which one has purchased into and bought into, very, very difficult to understand. And that's why Bhashyakara gives a lot of, takes a lot of time to discuss this. And so, therefore, Jnana Kartritve cha, he says, Jnaya Jnanabhyam Pravibhaktam iti Anantata Nasyat. Anantata Nasyat. What Anantam? What Anantyam? Nothing. There is no Anantata at all, because it is Pravibhakta. Pravibhakta means, it is divided into knower, known, etc., etc. All that we understand. So then he gives an example. What is that example? Gives an example from the Chandogya Upanishad. Wonderful example. Yatra na anyad pashyati, na anyad shrinoti, na anyad vijanati, sabhuma. Atha yatra anyad vijanati tad alpam iti shrutyantarat. Shrutyantarat, antara means another. According to another Shruti. Another Shruti, because what else will what else will Bhashyakara quote? He will quote another Shruti only to make this clear. And so he says, to make this clear, let us understand this. So, yatra means yasmin vastuni. In which thing here? In which vastu? In which vastu? What? This is what it is. In which vastu? Yatra na anyat pashyati. You don't see anything else. And it's a very cryptic definition here. Na anyat srinoti. You don't hear anything else. Na anyat vijanati. You don't know anything else. That is called bhuma. This is the famous dialogue between Narada and who? Sanat Kumara. Narada and Sanat Kumara. And what happens there? Narada is already extremely famous because of his knowledge. He's written lots of books. He has, and then he's also interterrestrial traveler. He goes from one loka to another without visa, without any effort. He just goes. And extremely pleasing, very charismatic. Nobody can find any fault with him. That kind of a person, very famous. And everybody is awaiting his arrival to find out news from other lokas. So such a person, is, the more famous you are, the more difficult it is to study Vedanta. Because you have to admit you don't know. And that is very, very difficult for a famous person. And so I'm just imagining he would have approached Sanat Kumara slowly after the class, after the prayer, Purnamadav, Purnamidam, etc., etc., and the class has started to disperse. And then slowly, please teach me Brahman. What? You don't know Brahman? Shh, quiet, not so loud, not so loud. It's just, still people are listening. Everybody is turning back and looking. What, Narada, you don't know Brahman? How is this possible? And so, therefore, it is a little bit of a, what should I say, liability to go study Vedanta when you're very, very famous. So why are you telling me this if you ask? That's why study now, so that when you become famous, you already know. Okay, that is the idea. So when you become really famous, you already know this. And so there, so he must have gone. I'm just thinking he must have gone, slowly approached him softly, and Soham Bhagavah. Soham Bhagavah. Soham means what? I know I am he. This, I am that Bhagavan. No, no, no. Soham means I'm this complaining, sad person. Shochami. I'm subject to sorrow. Shokasya param tarayatu. Take me from this, from drowning, keeping on drowning in this alligator infested water. Alligator means doubt and despair. These sorrowful waters of doubt and despair, all these seaweed, alligators, all these things, creepers, so many unsavory things in this water, not to talk of, what else to talk of? Undercurrents, some terrible surfs and waves and all these things. Take me out of these murky waters of self-doubt and despair. Shokasya param tarayatu. Make me cross over. Cross me over. Otherwise, if you don't cross me over, I'll continue to be cross. This is what it is. And so please help here. And, of course, Narada, says all this. And then Sanat Kumara says, okay, I just would like to know, because you're a very knowledgeable person. So where should I start teaching? So tell me what you know. And such a big list. And even if one studied for 12 years, one would not know all the things that Narada knew. He starts with Rig Vedaha, Yajur Vedaha, Sama Vedaha, Atharva Vedaha, Shiksha, Kalpaha, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chandas, Jyotisham iti. Interestingly, in the Mundakopanishad also, the same list is given. Same list is given when when Shaunaka goes to Angiras, his guru, and then says, please teach me, kasminnu bhagavo vijnate sarvamidam vijnatam bhavati. knowing which one thing, all these things are already as good as known, please teach me this. Then the guru there, Angiras, says, Dve vidye veditavye iti hasma. Two kinds of knowledges have to be known. What are they? Paracha, aparacha. One is para, one is apara, another is para. Tatra apara. So he starts with apara. And that list, you really can go and just do a kind of a textual analysis, and you will find it's the exact same list that Narada gives here in the 7th chapter of the Chandogya Upanishad. Fascinating, really. So here is the same list: Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda. They're also the same things. Shiksha, Kalpah, Niruktam, Vyakaranam. These are called Vedangas. The 6 Angas of the Vedas. Shiksha, phonetics. Kalpah, the art of doing rituals. Vyakaranam, grammar, the class that follows this. And then Vyakaranam, the Niruktam. Niruktam is, what is that? Etymology. It's like dictionary and thesaurus in one. And then Niruktam, Chandas, prosody, Jyotisham, astrology, astronomy, etc. And then he doesn't stop at the Vedangas. He says, I also know the Upavedas, like certain uh, bodies of knowledge that have been kind of given the status of, small baby Vedas, like Nakshatra Vidya, Shastra Vidya, archery, and all these things, art of warfare. And then what else does he say? Nakshatra Vidya, Shastra Vidya, Dhanur Vidya, this Ayurveda, everything he lists. And then he says some more things. He says, I know how to do this, I know that. Yeah, then the Itihasa, Purana, all these things, everything I know. And then so then if he knows all these things, then Sanat Kumara says, okay, I see your problem now. What is you don't know just that one thing. You don't know the only thing really that matters, because of which all these things are there. That one thing you don't know, that is why you continue to be sorrowful. And because you don't know that, this is why you are grieving. And what is that, he asks. He says, well, that is what is called bhuma, like Atman, bhuman. Why? Why does he not say Brahman? Because see, this is how we know how to teach. The Upanishad herself teaches how to teach. Because you have to see who is the audience. Who is the adhikari here? Narada. And for a person who knows he's a Chaturvedi. Okay, all the 4 Vedas he knows. All the Vedangas he knows. Upavedas he knows. Don't you think he would have come across the word Brahman not just once but many, many times? Yes, he would have come across that. And so then what? There would be a sense of jadedness, complacency. So there would be jadedness and complacency. And then there would be a sense of taking it for granted. And as soon as the word Brahman is uttered, then what? The mind switches off. Sometimes out of habit, sometimes out of hopelessness. I don't want to hear the word Brahman anymore, because what has happened? I have already attended 18 classes of Taittiriya Upanishad, and we are still far away we haven't even finished the definition of Brahman. And so don't talk to me about Brahman. Okay. How about Bhuma? Oh, what's that? Okay, so that's exactly the whole idea here. That is the whole idea, because the human mind is extremely, both recalcitrant and resilient at the same time. So the most disinterested, the most dejected person, you just give them something new. like a bored child with an old toy. You just bring it something new and give. Immediately it will be very bored, it'll be crying, it'll be having a tantrum or whatever it is. Disinterested, disenchanted. And you give it a new toy. Ah, what's that? How does it work? How does it, more importantly, how does it fall apart? How can I take it apart? This is what the, this is, immediately there is a jignasa, the desire to know, the desire to, play with it, the desire to engage. So here also, the Narada, being a very learned person, would definitely have come across words like Atma, Brahman, etc. And by his own admission, he doesn't understand them fully. And that's why he says, I need this knowledge. And so to him, a special word is made up on the spot. What is that word? Bhuma, Bhuman, like Atman, Atma. When it declines, the the nominative case singular would be Atma, Bhuma. So he says, Bhuma. Oh, what's that? That is what it is. First he says, what is Bhuma? He says, Yat Sukham, Yat Sukham, Yaha, Yat Sukham Tat Bhuma. Yaha Sukham, that which is of the nature of happiness. It's a custom made class just for Narada. Amazing how lucky he was. And to have this really customized class. As a result, all of us can benefit. So he says that which is Sukha Swarupa. What kind of Sukha? Niratishaya Sukha. A Sukha that does not have anything biting it from this side, or crunching it from some other side, limiting it from the front, or making it constricted from the back. No such thing. Sukha, complete Sukha, a Sukha that is Niratishaya, without any qualifiers, a Sukha that does not have any kind of limitations, a happiness that is not abridged, punctuated, and which does not lack anything at all. That is the Sukha that you want. And that is the Sukha that this Brahman, sorry, not Brahman, Bhuma is. This is what you need to, this is what you need to understand. This is Niratishaya Sukham. And then he says a few things before this quotation. He says, Alpe Sukham Nasti. In the finite, there is no happiness. Alpa means small. In smallness, there is no happiness. Bhumni. Bhumni is just like Atmani, seventh case. Bhumni eva sukham. In this Bhuma alone is Sukham. Sukham means happiness, the kind of happiness which is unlimited by, not constrained by time, space, or object, which is what you are in search of. That kind of happiness is not to be found in Alpa. Alpa means what? Smallness. Alpe Sukham Nasti. Bhumni eva Sukham. And then, therefore, he says, and he leaves it up to Narada. He doesn't say, oh, this is what it is. So he says that Bhuma is to be understood by you, is to be recognized by you. Bhuma, Bhumanam Vijignyase, he says. Now, first he says, Bhuma is to be Vijignasitavyaha. This Bhuma is to be desired, to be known by you. This is something you can do. And he doesn't say, oh, he waits for him to ask. Very, very nice. And then, Bhagavaha, he says, this Bhumanam Vijignase, I hereby inquire into Bhuma. I want to desire to know this. Very interesting dialogue, very beautiful dialogue. And then Bhumanam Bhagavo Vijignyase, he says, I now have a desire to know this Bhuma. Please tell me what is this. And then Sanat Kumara gives what is called Bhuma Lakshana. Bhumnaha Lakshana is given. And then how does he do this Lakshana? In his own way, Yatra, this is the quotation, we have come to it now. Yatra na anyat pashyati, na anyat shrinoti, na anyat vijanati, sabhuma. Sabhuma. Yatra means in which vastu. Anyasan anyat na vijanati. There is anyat, anyat na anyat pashyati means does not see anything anything else. This is a very cryptic quote. Does not hear anything else. Does not know anything else. And that is the bhuma which you are desiring to know. And so, because this is, this goes against the regular orientation. What is the regular orientation? Anyasan anyat pashyati. Anyasan anyat shrinoti. Anyasan means being separate, knows something other than oneself, hears something other than oneself, and then sees another other than oneself. This is what is called the vyapara of the sense organs. The transaction of the sense organs are such that you don't really see yourself. Yourself is not an object of sight to begin with, and nor are you an object of hearing. You're not an object at all. So the sense organs only see things other than you. They objectify things other than you. They know things, and then therefore you say janami, I know something other than myself. Everything is other. And so therefore this is how the whole vyapara, that is why we have grammar is possible because of this anyat pashyati, anyasan anyat pashyati. Anyah san anyat shrinoti, anyah san anyat vijanati. That is why grammar is possible, because we have subject, we have object, and then we have means of means, instruments, and then we have just all the karakas we have talked about. We have all of them, and then we have all of them, line by line, row by row, singular, dual, plural. We have all these 8 by 3 tables that we have to keep memorizing, just because that is how the transactions in the world takes place. So one, we have 3 by 3 table for the verbs, and then we have an 8 by 3 table for the all what nouns, adjectives, etc., and then pronouns, nouns, all these things. And so therefore that constitutes all the activities and the conditions in which these activities takes place. Knower, subject, object, means, origin of the action, place of action, and things connected to the actor, all these things. So then here it is very clear that this bhuma is not to be known as an object. So anyasan anyat na pashyati yasmin vastuni, in which vastu the person is not remaining separate from that which one knows. With reference to which vastu, there is no second thing to be known, second thing to be seen, no second thing to be heard, etc. That is the idea. And so this is also reminiscent of the expression in the Kenopanishad, pratibodha viditam matam. Because this is a impossible statement here. How can you know something? How can you say I don't know anything different and I don't see anything separate? Because the person's everyday experience is full of separateness. Is totally full of separateness. So how can the person say, I can't see anything separate, and I can't know anything separate? And so for that, We borrow this phrase from the Kenopanishad, Pratibodha Viditam Matam. And so, Amritatvam hi vindate. Atmanam vindate viryam, vidyaya vindate mritam. So that's the whole quotation, but this much is enough. Pratibodha viditam matam. Pratibodha means bodham bodham prati. In every cognition, in each and every cognition, that which is constant is what is looked at, not that which is variable. So, in every thought, in every cognition, there is one thing that is always invariable, you, and then the other things are variable, they come and go. Object of thought or object of sight, let us say. Object of sight, now I look at a flower, after that I look at an elephant, things are different. They come, elephant came, elephant went, flower came, flower gone, and then dog came, dog gone, and all these things. So this is the everyday experience. So object of thought keeps changing, and then the means through which that object is objectified also keeps changing. Some things are inferred. I look at the road in the morning and it is wet, and I infer, okay, last night it must have rained. Some things are inferred, some things are seen, some things are compared. Then arthapatti, anumana, the means of knowledge also keeps varying. Object of knowledge also keeps varying. And then knower also keeps varying. Why? Because as we just saw earlier, this vikriya takes place. Because before I was not the knower of the flower, now I am the knower of the flower. So that also keeps varying. So then what is it that's unchanging? That which is the content of the knower, the content of the known, and the content of the way of means of knowing. In other words, that because of which the knower becomes knower, known becomes known, and then that which is the means of knowing becomes the means of knowing. And if that is also hard to understand, we can put it in yet another way, that because of which that because of which the knower, which that consciousness, that awareness which blesses one to be the knower and call oneself the subject, and that same consciousness awareness that blesses that object to come to light as known, and that which is the means of knowledge also it blesses the eyes, the ears, and the buddhi for anumana, arthapatti, etc. And it blesses all these karanas to understand that this is what is the vyapara, this is what is going on, and that which is unchanging light of consciousness. And we call it light because it brings everything to light, and itself it doesn't need to seek another source of light because it is self illumined. And that is what is bhuma, knowing which all sorrow disappears. Sorrow is because of confusion. If confusion disappears, sorrow also has to disappear, because sorrow sits on confusion. That's what it does. And so this is what he explains. More we'll see. There's a lot more to see and talk about this quotation and how it is pertinent to our understanding of Brahman. And so we'll look at that tomorrow. Om Purnamadah Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Amma.